Alright, just got back from Guardians of the Galaxy 3 with the kiddos, the big new Marvel movie, the swan song to the Guardians of the Galaxy trilogy. So just like Ant-Man Quantumania, I wanted to do a movie review, because this is, my lane, the gaming, nerdy Marvel comic-y lane. So let's chat, let's have a talk about the movie. I'll let you know what I thought about it, you let me know down below what you thought about it. And first things first, this is a spoiler-free review. I will touch on the storyline, but it won't be spoilery other than the stuff in the trailer. So Guardians of the Galaxy Part 3. What did I think? Well, I absolutely loved it. It was actually a little bit of a story of two halves to me. The first half of the movie, I actually didn't really know whether I was liking it or not, if that makes sense. And then, obviously, as the movie unfolded and got further and further, then, the emotions welled up and all the scenes, especially, how they tied it up at the end with the nice little package, the nice little bow and everything. It really tugs on your heartstrings. And I definitely overall ended up loving the movie, even though I was kind of indifferent on the first half. So let's be honest, this movie has two fatigue problems going into it. Superhero movie fatigue, which is a real thing, and Chris Pratt fatigue. And now I'm not a big Chris Pratt fan, but I'm not a hater either. And I happen to think that Star-Lord is probably one of his best roles. I think he's a perfect Star-Lord. And that goes back to even the Marvel movies in general. I think what they excel at, what they've excelled at the last, 10, 14 years is honestly the casting. And, finding actors and actresses to bring the characters to life that actually become the characters. Like Chris Evans is Captain America to me. Robert Downey Jr. is Iron Man. Chris Hemsworth is Thor. Chris Pratt is Star-Lord. Even if you go back to the comic books, what I picture in my head, is, those characters, Chris Pratt and a lot of the actors over the years. So, way back in the day, comic book movies and video game movies weren't very good. And one of the major reasons is because they wouldn't star big name actors. And that is one of the things that Marvel helped mainstream a little bit, is they have high paid, really good actors and actresses that are doing these roles, bringing the characters to life. And I really don't think they get enough credit for that. And now on the subject of Chris Pratt, right? Obviously, he's in everything nowadays. He doesn't need to be in everything. However, like I said before, I do think he was made for Star-Lord. Him and Star-Lord are one and the same. So I can't complain about his performance. His performance in this movie, his acting performance, is actually the best out of all the Guardians movies. It's got some very emotional scenes, which I'll sort of touch on a little bit later, which he did a great job in. And Guardians 3 is definitely one of the MCU's best overall, not just Guardians movies, but all the movies overall, in the sense of eliciting the human emotion behind everything. And again, that's a lot of people that complain about the Marvel movies or superhero movies in general just being big CGI fests and there's no heart and soul behind them. That's just complete nonsense. Like, you have to see this movie. You can tell the people who made this movie cared so much for the content and the source material and each other, the cast, the director, James Gunn, all the actors and actresses. It exudes love and care for the source material, and I can tell that in games, I can tell that in movies, and I love to see that. It's when you feel that connection, and this movie is just such a love letter to the fans and the cast. And that's what I would say to those people that accuse the Marvel movies of just being the CGI fest, is I think, again, with the good acting, the good casting choices, they also excel at eliciting that human emotion behind the scenes. It's not just big dumb dudes hitting each other for 2 hours. There's human emotions. Even though they're big superheroes, they go through things that us normal people go through, so we can relate to that. And Guardians 3 is just the peak of that, because it's almost all about a human emotional journey that the Guardians are having. Because, this movie starts, when it starts, the Guardians are a little down low. They're settling down, but they're a little bit, broken up and not as cohesive as they were. And, something happens, obviously, as you know from the trailer. And then they have to go through this incredibly emotional journey where it really showcases the camaraderie of not just the Guardians, but the actors and actresses that played the role. You can tell that they are so close to each other, and they're having the time of their lives filming this movie, and it really comes through on the screen. So obviously this is a Marvel movie, so the special effects are no surprise. They're next to perfect. It does look better than Ant-Man Quantumania, because my big complaint about Ant-Man Quantumania is a lot of the sets looked very small, because they were filming on that, that LCD stage that they do now, that The Mandalorian made popular. But in Guardians and the space scenes and stuff, there's definitely way more expansive environments, a lot of, far away shots. And the environment and the set pieces were pretty amazing. There's a space station at one point where it's completely organic, like it's a growing, living creature. And it's so cool the way they did it. And it's got like Fifth Element vibes a little bit on a lot of the designs there and stuff, and I totally dug it. The plot of the movie I'm not going to go over here, it's a spoiler-free review, but everybody knows from the trailers and stuff, this does go into Rocket Raccoon's origin story, and it's so heart-wrenching to see parts of it. And trigger warning, the movie does have some, images of some animal abuse along the line. So if obviously you're sensitive to that, you might not want to see this movie at first. But it actually does it in a really good way, where you actually feel for the creatures, the animals. And actually, PETA gave this movie the stamp of approval, okay? If PETA likes your movie, you know you're doing something right. And it was amazing emotionally and visually to see Rocket's origin, to see where he came from, to see what makes him him, why he has the attitude he does and everything. It's such an amazing journey, a roller coaster ride to see everything he's been through to get him to where he is now. All the actors and the actresses did a phenomenal job. Everyone's believable. The most amazing part in the movie was actually the High Evolutionary, which is in the trailer. It's not a spoiler. But the actor that played the High Evolutionary stole the show. He was so believable in his motivations, in his insanity. Everything about him was amazing. He stole the scene, every scene he was in. And I didn't know anything about the High Evolutionary before this movie, but his origin ties in with Rocket's origin, as the trailer shows. And he's easily one of the best Marvel villains of all time. And I think a lot of the flack Marvel movies get in the new phases too is that there's not much overarching storyline in this one. There's no super big evil. I know obviously Kang is out there, but there's no, Thanos that's orchestrating everything over 10 years and a 10-year buildup, right? And a lot of the Marvel movies nowadays are sort of self-contained stories, meaning it's just like, hey, this is a day in the life of these heroes. If they fail, they're not going to, lose the galaxy. The galaxy's not going to blow up or anything. And even me, I have to adjust to that too, because I'm used to, hey, Galactus is coming, going to destroy everything. But a few of the recent Marvel movies are just self-contained sort of stories. And Guardians 3 continues that trend. This is a self-contained story. This is a story about the Guardians doing their thing. And I do think some people don't like modern Marvel movies because they're expecting this big, larger than life, the universe is going to die, everything's going to blow up thing, rather than accepting these stories for what they are. Part of the reason why I wasn't sure if I liked it in the first half is Adam Warlock. So everyone knows Adam Warlock is in the movie. His first few scenes in the movie, he's kind of like, he's very childlike. He's very dumb. He's there for comedic relief. I know Adam Warlock from the comic books. In the comic books, he's a very, very noble and powerful sort of celestial being. He even held the Infinity Gauntlet at one point. He was in Infinity Gauntlet, Infinity War. Like, he had a huge part in a lot of those stories back in the day. But in Guardians lore, especially this movie, he's like just born. He's like an infant. And, like I said, he's mainly there for comedy relief. However, just like Star-Lord and some of the other characters, he grows along with the movie. And by the end of the movie, I liked him. Because he grew, he matured, he went through the human emotions. And there's a lot of characters in that movie that go through this journey, through this last movie. Warlock, Gamora, Rocket, Star-Lord, even Nebula and Drax. And even me being a father, Drax's storyline, oh man, it tugged at my heartstrings. I cried at the end. Like, that was an emotional journey for me. And that's what this movie excels at. It's not just people beating up each other for 2 hours. There's so much emotion. So much love and care was put into finishing their story in the right way. And I dare you to watch this movie and say that superhero movies can't elicit emotions in you. I almost cried multiple times this movie. And even my kids too. My kids will give their review in just a minute. They were really, really intensely feeling what the characters were going through. Especially Rocket. So kudos to James Gunn and the crew. This movie is just phenomenal on every level. And I easily think it's one of the best MCU movies ever made, not just one of the best Guardians movies. It's such a heartwarming and emotional send-off for the characters. And I left the movie theater overjoyed, but also sad that the journey was over. And that's what they wanted to do with this movie. And they absolutely met their goal. Kudos to James Gunn again and everybody in the movie. And for my overall rating, I would rate it a 9.5 out of 10. A special shout out. We really loved Cosmo too. Cosmo, you are a good dog. Alright, so I didn't see the movie myself. I saw it with my two lovely children, Maria and Isaac. So, Maria, what did you think about Guardians of the Galaxy Part 3?
Me, personally, I love Guardians of the Galaxy. It's a funny movie.
You love all the characters, I know that.
Yeah. This was an amazing movie, and it shared the origin story of Rocket Raccoon. And that was very fun to hear and see.
It was very adorable. It was sad at the same time, but it was, very adorable.
Yeah, like, I never get emotional with movies, but, like, that had me, like, tearing up.
What about you, Isaac? Did you like Rocket's story in the movie?
Yes.
What was your favorite part of the movie? Did you have a favorite part of the movie?
Yes, I did.
What was it?
It was the part when... I forget.
So, Maria...
I love the part when Groot says, I love you. He only says, I am Groot.
I know. Maria, did you have a favorite part of the movie? I know you said you liked it overall. Did you have any favorite parts or favorite characters or anything that you just really loved this movie?
Well, my favorite character, Mantis. She's just so
Mantis,
weird.
Really?
She's so weird. I love her.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite character, Isaac?
Groot, Mantis, Rocket Raccoon, and
Star-Lord, right? You're a big Star-Lord fan too, right? You didn't like Drax? I love Drax. Drax is hilarious. Especially with his pooping analogy, right?
Yeah, like...
He made a turd that looked like a fish.
What better analogy, I don't know how to say that.
It's okay.
Analogy.
So is there anything you didn't like about the movie, or did you really like the whole thing?
Nothing was bad.
And no one has said anything about Cosmo yet? I thought you guys loved Cosmo.
And Cosmo. I hit my head. You're a good dog.
So there's nothing you didn't like about the movie, right? You didn't feel it was too long or anything like that? Any boring parts or anything? You liked the whole thing? Alright, so in the Guardians of the Galaxy movies, you've seen all three. You're a fan of all three. What would you say, can you put them in order of how you like them? Like first, second, third? Like, is this your favorite Guardians movie of all time? Or do you like one of the other ones a little bit more?
This is my favorite of all time. I like part 2 middle, and I like part 3 on the top of the world.
On the top? Okay, so part 3, according to my kids, part 3 is the greatest Guardians of the Galaxy movie of all time.
It's the greatest Marvel movie of all time.
What?
Spider-Man
you heard it here
favorite.
first. So Maria, you first. What is your final rating out of 10 for Guardians of the Galaxy Part 3?
100,000 million thousand. Oh God, yes.
Okay, that's not how numbers work, but okay, we got it. Isaac, what would you rate Guardians of the Galaxy on a scale of 1 to 10?
Infinity, Infinity.
Okay, there you have it. There's our ratings for Guardians of the Galaxy. The kid ratings for Guardians of the Galaxy Part 3.